Have you seen the movie Mean Girls? I'm sure a lot of you have, but do you remember the scene where they're all in that sex ed class? Yeah, well, they make it very stereotypical and awkward, but sex education doesn't need to be like that. Hello, my name is Cameron McAllister, and today I will be discussing with you all why sex education should be mandatory in middle school and high schools in Florida. For reference, I have received most of my credible information through the Northwest Florida State College database. Did you know that 39 states, including Washington, D.C., have required sex education in their schools, according to the U.S. News of 2022? Education is decided by the state legislature, so each state gets to decide what to teach. For example, Florida just passed a new law making it mandatory for kids entering in high school to take a personal finance class to graduate. And I think sex education should be the same. I personally believe that sex education should be a requirement in schools in Florida. First, I will explain sex education and the way I think it should be taught. Next, I will explain some reasons why I think it's beneficial. And lastly, I will tie it together by refuting some common complaints and arguments about not teaching sex education. For one, sex education is a really important thing to learn, and what some people don't understand is it's not just about sex. It involves different diseases, contraceptives, reproductive systems, body development, health, pregnancies, and abortions. In addition, having transparency with sex education in the classroom is key, and giving parents the opportunity to see exactly what is being taught. The parents know exactly what is going on while the children are still being educated, so there is no discrepancy. The Georgetown Journal wrote in 2019 that there are two different approaches, opt-in and opt-out education. In my opinion, opt-out education, where the parents can write a slip excusing the child from being taught the subject after reviewing, is the best option. This way, most of the kids are getting educated unless the parents are uncomfortable or concerned. Now, there is the debate of when sex education should also be taught. In my opinion, it should be taught in middle school and early high school because that's when kids are still maturing and being comfortable with themselves. According to the most recent information in 2017, by the CDC, about 54% of male and female teens have sexual intercourse by the age of 18. That's why teaching children in middle school and high school levels can be beneficial, so later on they can make more informed decisions. Lastly, after doing much research, I have found that there is no evidence Moving on, learning about sexual education has so many advantages. For one, it helps prevent sexual violence, and it helps children feel more confident within themselves and make better decisions in the future. To add, John from the Public Library of Science stated in 2018 that pre-college comprehensive sexuality education is an effective strategy for preventing sexual assault in college. Teaching children at a young age certain boundaries that they shouldn't let anyone cross over without consent will allow kids to be more respectful of themselves and others. Abuse can have long-lasting effects on people and devastating impacts, especially at a young age. According to Amy Jenkins in 2020, in the U.S., 1 in 3 people have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional abuse by the age of 18. The CDC stated in June of 2022 that over half of all women get sexually assaulted and 1/3 of men do in their lifetime. This is an insane amount of people, and it's really just sad. Sex education tends to teach teens about healthy relationships and knowing what it looks like so they can understand when something is wrong and how to react. To continue, the Canadian Journal of Human Sexuality wrote in 2020 that young people aged 15 to 29 have the highest rates of sexually transmitted infections, mostly STDs. One of the reasons this could be the case leading up to this is because some states still aren't teaching sex education. I know that some people personally don't even know what an STD is because we aren't taught it in school. The more we teach children about these diseases and how to prevent them, the better off they'll be. Learning about all of these topics that fall under sex education can help children be more confident with their bodies and themselves. Lastly, after doing much research, I have found that there is no evidence leading up to the fact that sex education does lead to more sex. Lauren Dent speaks on the history of sex education in 2017 and mentions how in 1960, that was the real start of sex education, but it truly started booming in the 21st century. Some people claim that the more you know in this case isn't beneficial. They think that if we teach our kids about this topic, the more they'll want to experiment and do stuff. But let's be real, we have the internet now, and if kids want to look anything up, they can. Wouldn't you want your kids to learn about sex education safely within the high school by professionals and not on their own in Google? Now, another big argument on why sex education shouldn't be taught in high schools is because of religion. They claim it's not the school's job to teach or educate their kids on this subject, but schools teach us everything else. In fact, this goes back to the sexual revolution in 1960s that provoked conservative Christians, according to an article written by the SSRC in 2020. The United States has self-censored their sex education if it's being taught at all, and we are nowhere near Europe's level. Taking sex education more seriously and actually teaching it will give our society a better chance. Overall, it is very important to teach sex education in schools, or in this case, Florida, because it helps the children so much. As I already stated, it's not only teaches kids how to be respectful of their bodies and others, but it teaches children how to be safe and know all of the consequences of their actions. I hope with all of this information I have shown you today, you can understand why I think it's so important to side with me and make a difference for years to come. Thank you so much for listening.